Welcome everybody to tonight's broadcast, Hangout on Air for the I&E Network. My name is Lou Jensen, and we've been getting together for a number of years now. And we try and do a broadcast every Wednesday night to help artists discover they have some talent, do whatever it takes to develop that talent, try and master something specific, and then learn to share it in the marketplace. So we're kind of a artistic cooperative. We help each other succeed in the marketplace with our skills as well as our business acumen. And so tonight is kind of an unusual show. It's called The Review. And what I do with my own life is between Christmas and New Year's is when I measure things. I try and see how what I got done compared to last year. Then I start looking at what I can do maybe for the next coming year. And this little review period of time is what a lot of people do not do. And so I'm going to go through my own checklist today, and obviously each of you can take what I've put as a format for yourselves, but also to try and build your own way of measuring. One of the oldest lines in business is that which you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And if that's true for your life and your living as well, then wouldn't it be even more important for your life? So as we move into this tonight and try and take this through, I'm going to do a little bit of the show first to tell a little more about who I am, because we have so many new folks jumping in. I guess got a ton of requests from both Facebook and Google+. So we're going to try and open that up, get that started first of all. Well, let me go back here and get screen share started. And we'll go back to the beginning of things here now, and we should have Life is a Journey.
You're good to go.
Good to go. Thanks, Mo. I'm talking about my own circumstance, and I usually make my shows and my broadcasts aimed at the only things that I know. So obviously most of you have lived a few years yourselves, and so whatever you disagree with or whatever you want to pull into your own measurement, I just like calling it one tough test, because being honest with yourself and understanding your real circumstances is pretty challenging. Most people tend to talk themselves into that they're doing okay, or they've got an excuse for everything, and that doesn't help you progress a whole lot. So how it's been as compared to how it's going, I mean, I can quickly take a test and kind of give you one random number to kind of look at how many days out of this whole last year of 2015 were pretty good days. Did you have a crappy year, or did you have a pretty good year? And if you're making progress, then this test will just be a little bit more enhancing. But if you had a really bad year, then maybe you ought to be changing some things and looking at some new circumstances. Because you know what? Here comes 2016, and the most amazing thing to me is how fast it'll be 2017. You get a little older, boys and girls, and it really rolls by in a hurry. But I like this period of time. I've done this for about 30 years now, and looking at my circumstances individually. I got to do a little of the PR work and promotional work for our sponsor. The I&E Network has been around since 1983. And a part of our company, which is called Profitable Hobbies. I'm working towards Inspiration and Encouragement Television. I'd like to have a talent discovery network before I'm finished, something that will be probably this similar kind of format of mastering and lifting each other as we try and climb up some kind of quest, some kind of personal talent development process. And I started a book called Opportunity Intersection, and it's a 7-hour video course on how to take a hobby and turn it into a really good little business plan. Been doing my live shows as Hangouts now for 4 years. I'm a fire starter in people's lives. I love trying to help people figure out what now should I do with the rest of my precious life. I'm pretty good at new innovative ideas, and that's pretty much where I've made my money over the years. But I'm a determined dreamer too. The fact is, most of us are holding ourselves back. And so as we talk a little bit tonight and start into this, for those of you that never have met me before, it's my 39th year in business. Next year will be 40. I grew up really poor, and I got really tired of being poor. And so in the 9th grade, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to become Dr. Lou and see if I can't solve this poor problem. So without enough money, I didn't think I was smart enough, didn't have enough money. I just kept thinking of all the reasons I can't possibly become Dr. Lou. But eventually I made up my mind, and absolutely nothing got in the way. I was as driven a person as there is to get through all those circumstances, and that's a rather long story. So this is the short version. My brother is also a dentist, and we practice together in our hometown, an energy development capital of the United States. And we called ourselves the Jensen Brothers Drilling Company. We had a lot of fun. We practiced for 15 years together. But dentistry is a really tough business. It's one of the worst professions out there. More suicides, more business failures, tons of divorces. It's just a wicked business to be in. And I really got discouraged after 15 years. I just decided I got to find some other way to go. And if you begin to have a struggle with your own personal circumstances and you can't find a way to get into something else, life gets really, really heavy. At Easter time, my kids were doing an Easter egg decorating contest and putting fancy patterns on their shelf. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that my high-speed dental drill could cut these patterns out, and I could one-up everybody in the family contest. That happened the Saturday before Easter in 1977. As I started playing with the idea a little bit, I just couldn't resist. I finally came up with the idea of modifying the dental drill, which is a right-angle tool, and I built the first straight ultra-high-speed handpiece in the world. Not much of a change if you realize this has been in dentistry for 80 years, hurting people in our mouths for 80 years, and no one in that whole period of time had thought about building a straight version. So we finally got in the business of making straight high-speed handpieces, and I personally think I've invented the world's coolest tool. Everybody in our database just has an absolute ball with it. And if you go onto YouTube and put in Dr. Lou Jensen, and I can't remember what this is titled, and underneath I did a little video presentation on how effective the power pen is, and we voted it. Samsung Note cell phone still the number one, and no, the drill, the power pen's number one in the world. And compared to a Dremel tool, which is the only tool out there that kind of competes with us to a degree, this is all electric, this is all air. This is huge, this is small. Dremel tool is 30,000 RPM. The Paragraver is 500,000 RPM. And that speed, for those of us that have used it, know the difference is just almost unbelievable. It's a little like comparing a biplane 30,000 RPM to a Learjet at 500,000. We started the company on September 12, 1983, and I call it the thank you business because we personalized products for relationships. And most of them are in the top half of the economy. And we have invented, our company website is called ProfitableHobbies.com. We sell systems and supplies and training and repairs in 3 areas: the custom engraving area, the micro sandblasting area, and also in airbrushing. I've been doing these webinars, these live internet webinars, for almost 10 years now. And when I launched on Google Plus, when it began several years ago, I really have done it just for the fun of it. I have not made too big of an effort to go dig at it really hard. So I put a few things up. But as I played with it, the Google Plus crazy gang is what I'm really having involved with. And I call it Success Mountain because that's kind of what we represent in our area. We got 7 beautiful mountains around us, and those 7 mountains help us figure out how to climb uphill, because that's what makes things successful. Got a great big family. We are cultivating and bringing them along. But between high-speed power carving and micro sandblasting and airbrushing, there are 3 really great profitable hobbies in concept, and we modified each one of them to make them more realistic so that a person could put on a pattern and trace the lines and carve something like this with this high-speed power pen a lot faster than it's ever been able to be done before. I call it a Perfect Touch Studio. It's just a really, really great way to retire and grow old and have extra income from a profitable hobby. We've had 30,000 systems sold in our period as a company, and our favorite line is, if you can trace a line, you can learn to do this stuff. Everything we do is from kind of a graphic reproduction. They call it illustration tactics. You trace a line. If you can get all these little tiny details in here and could trace this with this Sharpie, you could also be cutting right through the stencil and carving it into any surface that you want to put it on, from stainless steel, tempered steel, knife blades, crystal, glass, stone, bone, china, you name it, especially wood. Over our years, I've had a 7-step master's program where a person goes from an amateur to the master of something. Alan Cade won the Western Design Competition, and they're the leading furniture making designer in the nation now. This was a display desk piece for a billionaire fly fisherman called Time Well Spent, and they got 85 grand for that little beautiful little piece. Denny Winchcott is in Indiana, and Denny's one of the nation's leading artists, does gourd and gourd art carving. He's up to $20,000-$25,000 a piece in his carvings. And Kim was here from the Bahamas. She's just started this last year, just barely getting going. So from the point you are in your life right now, the checklist I think you should consider are things that to me are weightier, more important than normal business perspective. Not one of us know how much time we really have left. And too many people are just so concentrated on making a living and keeping their life steady with a paycheck, and they don't really realize this growing life is way more important than just making a living. The reason I am showing you a checklist is because I kind of live my life with a checklist. In dental school, I had to have checklists for freaking everything. And when I started learning to fly, I had an airplane company for a while, Basic Flying. I had 15 airplanes, and I just love to fly. But you, as a pilot, don't get in a plane without a checklist. When I started my company in 1983, I developed checklists there as well. And I don't like someone else's checklists. I prefer my own compass. It is a method to trust your own judgment. That which you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And that's so significant. Aviation in itself is not inherently dangerous, but to an even greater degree than the sea is terribly unforgiving for any careless incapacity or neglect. I like to show this picture once or twice a year because it is just not cool to end up here. I started developing a book that talks about the business plan of how you take a hobby and do something with it in business. And it's the only want world business plan out there. Everything else you'll see as a business plan is things that people need. And our whole world is things that people want. It's a 7-book series, paper format, as well as video instruction that come with that whole program now. And when I started this so many years ago, one of the things I've really concentrated on, instead of IQ, I'm worried about LQ. Because the quality of your life is really up to you. There's just no other person you can blame for those circumstances. You can try, but it doesn't go over really well. And at this time of the year, these new resolutions are just, it's amazing because it catches everybody. It's on everybody's mind. It's in the middle of our thinking now because of winter. We're finishing one year, moving on into another year, and the whole idea here is to find something that really actually would work for you. This is my brother-in-law, Chris. Chris and I are hooked at the hip pretty tight anymore. His wife of 30 years passed away this year, and it has been a really serious transition for that boy. Jocelyn and he both had some physical struggles, and they were so close, and such a good marriage for all these years. And now he's got to go on from here and do something more with the remaining part of his life. One of Chris's favorite sayings is that 99% of your life's between your ears, because if you can find one way or another, you can do anything. There is no excuse for being stuck. And if there's anybody out there that can testify of, this is the last guy on earth, you want to tell him he can't do something. Because I guarantee you he will figure out some way to do it. So this comes out of my own years of trials and errors. I just tell everybody all I've done is I know everything not to do. Okay? But the distance between reality and our dreams is what we've got to close. If you stay your whole life right here and you never get to any of those dreams that actually can become reality, I just sit and think, well, why bother? Why struggle? Just sit down and watch television every day. And if you're not interested in a transformation this year, 2016, to move a little bit further along in the goals and projects that you had, then my show's not going to mean a lot to you. But if this is a change and the season is change, you can feel it in the wind, you know that circumstances are coming along, you might be the crazy one that actually makes a huge difference. So the number one thing is to wake up with a thankful heart. Call it thank you business for a reason. If you can wake up every day and realize you have the gift of life, then you have gotten at least a really good start every day. I learned that really the most important thing in this life is, and this was a counsel that was given to me by Woody and Jax. They're my mentors in my business years. Number one thing in life to go after is the control of your personal time. If you're stuck on a paycheck still, then the thing to do is gradually move, work in the direction where you can kind of get from the necessity of a paycheck to where your income is coming in from the control of your own personal time. I believe this sincerely. I don't know of a single target that's more worthwhile and more valuable than gaining your personal time. The next is to realize that life's really short, and it is a journey, but we get to choose three things in the process. We get to choose the direction of that journey that we're going to take and the attitude that we carry constantly, okay? And we also get to choose who we travel with. And so the measurement of your year starts here. Are you going in the direction that you know you're getting somewhere? When you wake up every morning, do you have a direction in mind? Is there a degree of a plan of that I want to take my life this way? And then you get up knowing that that's the direction that you want to try. And everybody else gets up every morning and just faces whatever comes. And I guarantee you, before you can blink your eyes, you'll be my age and you'll go, what happened from 30 to lose? I mean, good grief, what in the world happened? How fast does it go, okay? My book, Opportunity Intersection, talks constantly about moving your life from your as-is world to better. So what would better be? And if you don't decide that, who's going to decide it for you? I'm throwing up all year this year some important stuff. Confidence in ourselves is really, really a significant thing. You can't succeed in small business without knowing that. And having a degree of confidence comes from your ability to actually do what you say you can do. Jack Solomon is one of my strongest friends and my greatest relationships in my life, and he used to tell me that the biggest problem most of us have is we don't see ourselves well. We don't know what we don't know, okay? And if you go back to this attitude thing, our own thinking is what actually limits the rest of our lives. And when we don't know what we don't know, boy, it just flat doesn't even exist. And there's not a soul that isn't captured in intellect right here somehow, and maybe more ways than one. You think you know, but the older you get, the more you realize you know. I always tell everybody, when I get a chance to counsel somebody, I'll ask them how much they learned from 30 to 40. And we all, oh, wow, learned a lot. Well, how much from 40 to 50? Oh, geez, even more. And then I said, well, what do you think is going to happen from 50 to 60? And from 60 to 70? Even more. We don't, it's a constant, never-ending circumstances of learning what goes on. The second big lesson of life is that nothing happens in a huge flash. This winning the lottery baloney is just, and it just motivates so many people's lives, but there is not much reality there. And if you keep your head in the game and realize it's uphill and it's one step at a time, you got a lot better chance of actually succeeding. This is Keith Hone right here, and this is his son Craig. And Keith was our first master in the program. He came to me and he says, I want to retire early from teaching. And I understand you retired early from dentistry playing with this. And I said, well, let's make a business plan. Well, let's go from your as-is world to something better. And Keith retired a number of years ago, a couple of years early. And he came up with this one step at a time idea, okay? And in every class, he would come in and talk to our classes and our courses constantly about what made it work for him was just taking a little at a time. You don't have to rip up the world every day. This little tiny rudder on a ship is what steers it to where it is going. And it is the little changes that make the big difference. You make a little change here, and you end up, when you've gone through the journey, it ends up with rather big results at the other end. And the second you begin to see in someone else's life that they're actually making it work and you can see some direction for yourself, then you've got something to go on. Tam and I were at the opening of the Norman Rockwell Museum the day that it was opened back east, and Steven Spielberg put up the money and funded it at his home and his studio in that beautiful little town, and oh, what an experience it was to be there. And then we just had at the university, had all of his major, a bunch of his major originals, and this is the original of that picture. I got to see it. And if you can sit and look and say, well, I'm no Norman Rockwell, but if I stick really close to who I am, isn't there something here significant that can kind of begin to show you the direction that maybe you want to take? And all I did was carve eggshells. At first, that's what I thought I'd discovered. Then I found out it was the high-speed drill. And then it was the kit and the package to show people how to do it and replicate what I was doing. Then our masters have each gone in their own creative directions, every one of them. And we just have this, it's a kind of a prototype. It's a view into the lives of other people. And if you can spot what someone else is doing and you say, hey, I think I could do that, then you've got something to go after. But no change happens unless your thinking changes first. How you see things and how you think things is what really has to significantly happen here. Dale Nish was a university professor, and he industrial arts, and he loved to turn. And he began to realize there wasn't really a good text out there, so Dale wrote the Bible in the 50s on wood turning, and he took his hobby and just turned it into his whole life. Utah Craft now is a huge company. Their sons all run it. Dale just passed away a couple of years ago. A really, really good friend. And he just took his precious thread of interest and turned it into his business. And it's these threads of interest that just, I don't know how you can ignore them. and they're very specific for all of us. All my life I've wanted to do this, all my life I've wanted to do that. I like motorcycles, I like trucks, I like golf, I like whatever, fishing. Take your precious thread of interest and turn it into a all the rest of your life consuming kind of thing. I ran into Oriah a number of years ago when her poem first came out. It's very, very famous now. If you type in invitation poem into Google, it'll drop you right in her lap. I'm going to read this to you quick because I want you to think differently about these precious remaining years. This verse has really affected a lot of people's lives. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream and meet your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, and for your adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you've touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it, or fade it, or fix it. I also want to know if you can be with joy, mine and or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without caution, to be careful, to be unrealistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of a full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. I like this verse a lot. It comes into my life every year. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you'll stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. That comes from the voice of experience. And it's made her famous now. She has 4 books out, and all of them are just amazing. And in the one book, I was in Vancouver on vacation, and I was reading her latest book, and she says, everyone always asks me how come I've succeeded, and she says, all I really did was pick up a thread of interest and just never let go. And that's what I did, and that's what every one of our masters have done as well. Stay really close to something that you really enjoy doing. I just saw this on Google Plus. Oh, I had to show everybody tonight. This is the random intensity generator here. Okay, and this is your procrastination engine here, and your motor skills and function, this little part right here, and your attention span is this little part right here. Then look at the decision maker. Oh, is that absolutely? This is your creative inspiration capacitor. Okay, that's the greatest part of your brain right there. Right brain is quite a dangerous tool, but when used correctly, it can create beautiful masterpieces. When used incorrectly, it turns into a daydreaming mess. It took me a lot to get it written, to get it published, and get it finished. And now I'm going to use the rest of my life trying to drive it into the marketplace to have people realize there is a directional finder. There is a compass out there. And it really works to design tomorrow today. You just can't put it off and just expect somebody else to design it for you. To take it from dream to reality is going to take something of a specific kind of plan and effort. It's impossible to win the race unless you bother to venture to run. Possible to win the victory unless you dare to battle. Cowboy up, okay? This is not something you can just skim over. And this is right out of my book. Something really fun, enjoyable, satisfying, therapeutic, worthwhile, and something that'll pay the bills. Just all but a little miracle going on here. This is my sum of list. This is the 7 categories that I measure every year. And these are the ones that I'd like you to zero in on and then add or detract whichever way you feel necessary. I call it my sum of because for each person there's a kind of a general range of importance to you. And I put the one that I think is most significant is your health. If you don't have good health, the rest just really gets miserable. So paying attention to your health circumstances is huge. Also, if you're broke, it's really, really hard to have a decent lifestyle. So some savings and better than average income is kind of next on the list. I don't think life is very, very sound if you don't have some wisdom to live by, some basic core values that you just will perpetuate at all costs. I think having a good family and some good friends is a cultivation of a garden that just requires constant attention and care. Some travel that makes life and living so rich is something I value and treasure a great deal. The talent to discover, develop, master, share, and something to really be passionate about is just, I don't want to get up every day and not have something to work on, something that lights my fire up and keeps me going. And finally, a great place to live and grow your own version of paradise. I think that should be your creative studio, personally. So, as you take these now and you compare it to last year, what I try and have you do from coming out of my books is look at these 7 categories and rate them as honestly as you can between now and tomorrow. How's your health? What percentage are you doing here? And then how's the money situation in your life, a percentage here. You're constantly growing and learning and education and understanding. You're working on your family and friends and relationships that are growing and getting better. You're traveling to some degree, I hope. A passion for the talent that you've discovered. Either you've discovered or you need yet to discover what you're really good at. That's what we try and do in the I&E Network the most, is look at the possibilities whenever. It's always right under people's nose. Every time it's something they've been close to for a long time already. And then how have you got a creative centered place? Now in every category here it could be a range. It's sum of whatever you think your real needs are. And so as I take these 7 categories, it really covers just about everything that's in the world for lifestyle, okay? Talks about Ben Franklin in my book. He used to take 13 characteristics that he struggled with his entire life long to see if he couldn't grow and develop those individual skills. And then I throw in one of the most greatest fortune cookies I ever got in my life is a program that works must be one of commitment, not convenience. So it's commitment. There's just no way around it. You're either doing it or you're not. And as long as you're aware of your personal circumstances and you're measuring yourself honestly, those numbers here will grow, because this should be 2015. How did the year go? Then 2016, you're looking at this year again and compare this year to this year to this year. Then you start to see the things that you really ought to concentrate on. What are the things here? What can you nudge along to improve this circumstance in any one of these 7 categories in the coming year. Okay. I was going to the National Boy Scout Jamboree as an invitation to Scoutmaster, and I heard that Steven Spielberg was coming to the Jamboree. And the one before, they had President Reagan come, and the National Scout Committee gave President Reagan a plastic raincoat, $30 plastic raincoat as a gift for the President of the United States. I could freaking die. So what I did was, as soon as I heard Spielberg was coming, I carved a walking stick for him. And then I moved heaven and earth to make sure he got it at the Jamboree. And then the next morning he was walking with his walking stick and his Boy Scouts, and the guy happened to get a picture of him with my work. And I've had that now in my life for all these years. I talk about a thrill. And all I did was take that entire year to plan and prepare and stack the deck. I put everything in place. This just was not an accident. I stacked the deck in every way I could possibly think to try and make it actually succeed. So one of the themes I'm going to carry throughout this year, I've already launched it in one of my previous shows, is Ready for Bear. This was my dad's favorite saying, is when it was time. No more screwing around, Jensen. We got to get something done. They called me Louis R. If you're upset with me and you really need to get my attention, call me Louis R. And then I know you're upset. And I'll really concentrate. And so Ready for Bear was Dad's favorite saying, and I'm going to use it a little bit more. Because I think profitable hobby is still the greatest way to retire there is. You can write off every dime of your business expenses to try and make your business work. So your motorhome, your trip, your travel, your play, your cars, everything is a write-off. And it just makes, there's no other way. There's no better way to retire. Every one of us have done this exact same thing in the process, okay? I'm also living by something I found this year on Google+. The older I get, the less I care about what people think of me. So therefore, the older I get, the more I'm enjoying my life. And boys and girls, if that's not the only way to grow old. A lot of people motivate us, a lot of people discourage us, but it's not fun to live up to somebody else's standards and then somebody else's circumstance. So I'm going to preach this one a lot too. I'd put this on your list if you're real touchy about what other people think. You better rethink that whole process. I shot this just a couple of days ago. This is Maple Mountain, and I'm talking about climbing here, not making a big effort down here on the level. Let's make this year's effort to climb to the summit of some fairly lofty task, and know that the process of going uphill is where the good stuff really is. I use this slide in the end of all of my programs because I think it's such a significant way to go after the marketplace and the economy. If we're doing a masterpiece together, then we've got a lot more possibilities than if we try and take on the economy alone. Alrighty, I hope that gives you a little bit to think about and something to consider a little bit this year as you're moving into the beginning of the year. Kind of measure your own circumstances against how this last year went and see if you can't tend to improve those for the next coming year. All right, any comments anybody wants to make? Got a full house. Oh my hell, look who's here. Jensen, good to see you, buddy.
Going by your
Go
checklist,
ahead, Ron.
Going by your checklist, Lou, the only one that I have a real problem with is my health. And someday something might come along to straighten that out. But all the others, thanks to you 20 years ago, where you told me start at the end and start planning backwards, was what got me to where I am.
Begin with the end in mind. Yep.
Yep.
That's
And I remembered that from the first time you told me. And I can say I followed that advice, and it worked.
Thank you. Well, I got to thank Steve Covey for that, because that really was his concept. And It does make a difference when you plan. If you don't go ahead of your life and get out ahead of it ever, your living is always going to be behind an 8 ball. You just cannot depend on a paycheck. Sooner or later, that's going to raise hell with you. And everybody I meet says, well, if I could just make another $50 an hour, then my life would be fine. If I could just make, I had a long discussion with my 2 oldest grandsons about this very thing a couple of days ago. Because when you're young, you think, oh, if I could just make another $5 an hour, $20 an hour. Hell, $100 an hour isn't enough. It just doesn't work well that way. And if you can't get to the point of some point where you're independent and control your own time, you're going to be discouraged. Oh, I just ripped out my ears. Sorry about that. Anybody else? Yeah.
I've discovered through the past that no matter how much money you make per hour, you always live to your means or in excess of your means. So you're always behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. It just doesn't work well when that's your planning. And yet, who teaches anything else? You don't learn anything in high school or college, and advanced college is always a paycheck. That's what everyone aims you at. And until I ran into Woody Searle, I sat down with Woody, and I was a hotshot young dentist. I'm making a ton of money. And I was pretty proud of myself that I'd got my butt in the ringer with the subdivision development that I was trying to do, and I was really struggling financially. And so I went up to see Woody, and he sat down, first words out of his mouth, he says, son, you're trying to become rich, aren't you? I said, yeah, dang right. I grew up poor. I'm not going to die poor. And Woody says, well, you got this whole damn thing wrong. He says, you got the cart before the horse. Out west, we call that bass backwards. And he says, it's not. He says, #1 card is control of your personal time. That's as rich as you can get in this lifetime. And God, that affected my thinking. I just had never heard that before.
I think Sheila had a comment she wanted to
Go
make
ahead,
to a
Sheila.
question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, couple things, yeah. Actually, my husband has been planning for retirement, and he's kind of got things laid out to where he's shooting to retire in a year.
Okay.
That's his goal. That's his goal, because he said, if I don't take any vacation time, then the guys will know I'm retiring. He didn't take any vacation time, so
Okay.
so yeah, he says, I'm planning it to where, okay, he'll have enough insurance to last for like 3 years to try to carry me through, because he's got to get me to where I can get like Social Security and all that stuff, you know. So anyway, yeah.
Well, without a plan of action, and a gradual moving from where you are, your as is world to better.
Yeah.
It does improve. That is the only way to do it, is just gradually, like the little tiny rudder, make the adjustments and changes that you can, so that you know that the eventual goal is to get. I can tell you, out of 80 million people my age, I'm the oldest boomer, so younger than me, I'm the leading edge, and 80% or 90% of them cannot retire.
Right.
They have to keep working.
Right.
And going, boy, you can't see ahead of that and get to a point where you really can make that adjustment and do. And I don't care what you do with your life. That's a very, very personal something to be passionate about, I hope.
Right. And he's got some things to work on. It's like he's got his embroidery business he can do, and he's got a laser engraving that he can do. But he doesn't want to be tied to that one. But he's got some irons in the fire with the city where he works anyway. So
good.
But I told him, I says, do I need to go get another job? I need to quit my school crossing and get something else, Who's going to hire an almost 60-year-old?
Yeah, we
Almost.
generally aren't on the upper end of the pay scale at that age either, are we?
I'll go be a
Yeah, very,
Walmart.
very challenging.
I'll go be a Walmart greeter or something.
Well, if you can sit on a few more shows, you'll discover what I think of that job. That's, to me, that's
No,
the
I will. I'll say no.
That's
No,
just
I won't
gotta
do
be
that.
about the last
That's
one
the
on the list for me.
Bottom of the barrel.
I walk in the store and I see. I went in out in Vernal a little bit ago, and my old high school English teacher was there in that role, and I just went, oh God, to have gone through your entire lifetime and then have to be stuck in
Well, you know what I'd see though.
whatever's left
You know what
over, I think.
You know what I see of those people? They do not greet you. They're not. They're not happy.
It's minimum wage. I'm going now. How
That
I
doesn't.
stand there.
I don't think that doesn't really matter. You know, if you greet somebody with a smile and welcome to Walmart.
Yeah,
You
make
know,
it enjoyable.
Yeah, make it worth my walk in.
Yeah. Well, we certainly hope that we can target something and pull it in a direction where it actually is more productive.
I have some.
Because it really isn't about the money. It is more about
No.
what you enjoy doing and what you like taking on in the marketplace and the economy.
Yeah, and I've got
Any
some
other
personal
thoughts
goals.
from anybody? Nick? Nick's also mastering our program.
Yes. I've been dealing with a cough, so
Ouch.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry.
at the moment it's
holding on.
So,
Okay.
but
You've had
Yeah.
quite a period of time to play with all of this stuff, and the concept of dealing with your passionate efforts, Nick. I don't know anybody that does more really unique work than you, and it shows to me in what you produce. How many of you saw that carved antler set, the skull of the deer that was carved today? And it was on Google Plus as well as Facebook, and it was laced out like I do my eggshells, and I just went crazy. I just went, God, that doesn't turn you on no end. It was just astounding. And when you think from one material clear over to another material and you take your talent, that's what you've done, Nick. You really got a wide range of your skills. Is it fun to have something at this point in your life you can play with that you dearly love doing?
Yep. And the other thing is, local paper did an article on me, and it came out Christmas Eve.
Oh my gosh. Oh, good. Well, let's get it
Yeah.
up. Let's get it up. So everybody, so they were good. They complimented you and
Yep. It's, Artist Spotlight.
Artist Spotlight. That's excellent. That's
We have
excellent.
a magazine section that's in our post bulletin, and had an article on me this last.
That's a good neighborhood up there.
Thursday. Yeah.
He lives near the Netflix. Good area for
Well,
you. Excellent.
congratulations, Nick.
Yes.
Next thing we need to do, you, me, and Joni need to get on the doc about adding our portraits to the masters list.
Well, I think it's on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to
No.
modify. The one I showed tonight is the old one. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I need to
The
get
only
you
one up
guys.
there that is on the stream is Ron.
Well, every one of those that are on that list right now, Mel, they all bribe me.
I
Yeah,
understand.
that's
See, and you guys just haven't quite figured that out yet.
Okay.
figured out the right bribe.
You all know that Dr.
I'm
Lou
not
is
sending you any more
slow
pin
at getting
Don't
things
worry about
done. I just do what I can do, and I play all the time. Unfortunately, that's my motto. Debbie is Sheila, I'll share with you, is having a good time is my job.
And mine's keeping his butt out of the fire.
And Mel's keeping me out of jail, and Ron's trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And Nick, has given up. We have a
Trying
good
to
time.
help you keep the computer going.
Keep the computers going. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Hey, if we could
Anybody
get,
got another comment? Ed.
Yeah, if we could, if we could get Nick to post that article that they received, that what all they had to say.
Okay. Well,
Plus, I think it would also promote him a little bit too.
Yeah, we can all shove it all over the web. I just started Facebook again 2 days ago, and I have not done it very faithfully, but I'm going to hook up with Hootsuite, and I'm going to hit it all. Develop Pinterest and Facebook and Google Plus this year. So that's my own particular goals, because what our circle needs most of all is exposure. And now we're beginning to have the tools that are just dramatic for that. It just blows my mind how far you can reach with Google Plus and Facebook.
And Pinterest is not just for girls.
No, Pinterest is especially for graphic. Especially graphic interest. And I have my one slide I use a lot. It's called What You Ought to Do. And I must have 10 people a week saying, Jensen, what you ought to do is get all over Pinterest. So we will hit that hard this year too.
Well, good.
So good to have everybody in there tonight. Sean, are you still in Vegas? I don't know if he's got his microphone open.
No.
He's muted.
Yeah.
Easy for him.
Can you hear me?
Have
Yeah, now we hear you.
Lou?
Yeah, there you are.
I'm here.
You're not in Vegas.
No, we're not in Vegas. We're in
Okay.
Salt Lake City.
Oh, you're up here now. Oh, bingo. Ah, damn. Well, that's incredible. So I'm godfather to at least one of their children. How many kids do you have now?
Oh, I've been disconnected. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
it's the buffer on your computer probably is not letting you
Yep.
through enough, Sean.
We got 4 kids.
4 kids. That shows you right there how old I'm getting. That's not good news. That's not good news. Thank you for sitting in tonight and participating, all of you. I appreciate your participation, and we'll try and get together now. We'll skip and get on next week. Every Wednesday, we'll begin the series of, we're going to talk about personal branding. We're going to talk about sales and marketing, upscale marketing. We're going to talk about pricing, all the business issues from January to June that really are significant if you're in the hobby-based business format. So we'll start on those and begin with trying to help you come up with a really great dream. And we're going to try and build a plan of action. Then we're going to try and gather and prepare, and then we're going to launch the dream. From that point on, what you try and do is measure and track your efforts, and then solve problems creatively. Creative problem solving is all a business really is if it won't work one way, then damn it, there's another way to do it. And then the 7th step is sharing, learning to share what we have with the world. And I guarantee you, the second you get to the point where you're trading your talents and your interests with the world and getting paid to do it, okay, I'm so determined to help Google Plus learn how to get paid for what we are doing now. Everyone's doing for free. I see very few that actually are making it work economically, and I'm pretty determined to try and figure that out, and especially for our circles. So all of you have a happy new year, and be quiet and safe. If you're going to drink and get plowed tomorrow, don't drive, okay? We'll see you next year, gang. Thank
Be
you.
safe, everybody.
Happy
Good
New
night.
Year, everybody.
Happy New
Good night,
Year.
everybody.
Still alive, Lou.
Yeah, good night.